Hey there, guys. All right, this is video number 2 of Weight Loss Made Simple. In the first video, we talked about having realistic goals. And in this video, we're going to talk really quickly about restriction. Okay? So, in order to lose weight, to get to a weight that's healthy for you, you have to choose your form of restriction. Unfortunately, in the world we live in, you can't just eat whatever you want whenever you want and expect to be at the weight you want. Okay? We just don't get that many passes at reality. Okay? Math is a thing, and too much addition equals a bigger sum than we would like. Okay? So there has to be some form of restriction or subtraction. Okay? So in order to create a form of restriction or a calorie deficit, as it's called. A calorie deficit just means a calorie is just a form of measurement, as pounds or kilograms is a form of measuring weight. Calories are a form of measuring energy that we intake in the body. Okay, so we have to find a way to drop our calories in a reasonable way that is sustainable. Okay, so if it takes this many calories for me to stay 200 pounds and I want to get to 190 pounds, okay, I have to eat fewer calories to be smaller. Okay, so I know restriction and deficit are things people don't want to hear about, but it's a reality. Okay, so we have to choose a form of restriction, one that is manageable, one that you can deal with for a long period of time. There are a few ways to do this. Okay, you can restrict junk food. Like, let's say, hey, I'm only gonna eat food that is whole food, unprocessed food. Well, immediately you're cutting out like sodas and candies and cereals and all this other stuff, which immediately drops your calories. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to restrict the number of meals a day. So you could do something like intermittent fasting and eat between 12 noon and 8 o'clock at night. Okay, you cut out a whole meal in the morning. And for most people, breakfast is around 3 to 600 calories for most average people. If you're, a bigger person and you like to eat, you could be more than that. But you're going to cut out somewhere between 3 to 600 calories a day. And for most people, they don't even notice it. That's one way you can do it. You could restrict. You could just restrict timing. You could say, "Hey, I'm only going to eat between these hours." You could restrict an entire macronutrient, meaning you could say, "Hey, I'm going to lay off on the carbohydrates. I'm just going to restrict my carbohydrates. I'm going to have some, but I'm going to make sure that they are quality. I'm not going to have processed sugars. I'm going to have sweet potatoes and fruit as my carbs." Okay, that's one way to do it, because you immediately take out junk and process and all this other stuff. So we have to find a way to restrict. Probably the most accurate way to restrict is to count calories. And it's one of the most difficult for some people to learn, but it's like any other skill. The more you practice it, the better you get at it. But I have found that the two best ways for people to apply restriction, I would say three, is to either count your calories, just learn how to do it. It takes time. I can teach you how to do that through some of my courses and videos. You can restrict processed food, meaning just clean up the diet. It's probably one of the easier ones. And then if you couple cleaning up the diet with skipping a meal, like only eating 2 meals a day, you immediately double your efforts. You stack those two restrictions and you have a much easier time. Okay? So pick your restriction, but make it manageable. If it's so strict that you can't handle it after just a month, then obviously that was too much. It needs to be something that you can fit with your lifestyle, okay? And it needs to be something that you can actively control and decide to do even when you're tired. Because that's when people fall off. They had a stressful day, they came home from work and the kids messed up the house, and it's like, man, I just need some Ben and Jerry's. Okay, well, if you're restricting junk food, then you probably wouldn't have Ben and Jerry's. Maybe you could have yogurt with honey and berries. All right, that's just as sweet. But it has protein in it. It's not as processed, and it's much less calories for what you're taking in. Okay, so you immediately restricted yourself. So this is how we do it. Okay, rule one: pick a sustainable goal. Like pick a habit, pick a goal that's sustainable, realistic expectation. And number two, we choose our form of restriction. I personally like to skip breakfast, and then I eat pretty clean in my other meals. That's what I do. It works well for my life. When I don't actively have any goals, when I do have goals, like, hey, I want to put on some muscle mass or I want to shed a few pounds, then I usually count calories because it's more controlled for me and it gives me a way to manipulate things, right? So that's what I choose. But you have to choose some form of restriction, all right?